Yes, there is, Gary. A lot of them, actually. But there's one in particular, a new chairwoman at the Broward Republican Party, Christine Butler. And right out of the gate, she has big plans to revamp the overall image of the Republican Party. It's one of her top priorities. But those plans aren't flying with everyone. Butler's plan to improve image is to cut back on transparency. No more cameras, no more media, no more reporters in party meetings. In fact, you can't stay in the meeting at all unless you're a registered Republican. This according to Butler herself. She says she doesn't want what she calls, quote, the inhibition of the media in the room. She goes on to say, we would also like to issue press releases when we do things that showcase and highlight things that we do well. Of course, the obvious counterpart being she doesn't want the media coverage when they don't do things well. She says, I would like to not control the message, but I think there are some things that are business that should be taken care of by us. In other words, keep it in-house. So again, Butler wants to improve the party image, and to do that, she would cut back on transparency. The first part of these meetings she's talking about will be open to the media and any non-Republicans, non-registered Republicans, that is, but that's only the part of the meeting where they do the things like the Pledge of Allegiance, they have opening prayer and an opening speech. Then they have a break in the meeting and ask all reporters and anyone who's not registered as Republican to leave the room. They kick them out before they discuss any actual business. Now, when asked about her goals, Butler said, quote, I need to get donors. I need to get solid, good Republicans. We need a good persona. It's an interesting approach. She's certainly not going to make any friends in the media by showing them out the door. More political news in South Florida. Another election came and went in Pembroke Park, and the entire incumbent commission panel held on to their power. They kept their seats. All four commissioners and the mayor won their election because they didn't have any challengers. There actually wasn't an election at all. Nobody signed up to run against them. They ran unopposed. Now, it is a small town, about 6,000 full-time residents, closer to 12,000 in the winter with all the snowbirds moving south, but they only have an election every 4 years. Now, this same thing happened back last time in 2011, too. There's only a small window to register if you'd like to run for office. It's a 2.5-day window on a weekend, but that opportunity doesn't happen again for another 4 years, not until 2019. Until that point, you'll have the same leaders in Pembroke Park. And a tragic story today. A 25-year-old father faces first-degree murder charges in Tampa. Police say he threw his own daughter, a little 5-year-old girl named Phoebe, off of the Sunshine Skyway Bridge in St. Petersburg, where she later plunged to her death. Police Chief Anthony Holloway says he can't even start to come up with a motive.
I'm doing this job for 29 years, and I don't even know what was going through this guy's mind.
Now, according to police reports, John Johnchuk sped past an officer on his way to the bridge, and that alerted the squad car to follow after him. But he waited for the squad car to reach him before the driver even got out of the car.
The suspect got out of his vehicle, and he started saying something to the officer, but the officer had no idea what he was saying. The suspect then went to the other side of the vehicle, pulled out a child, put the child's face toward his chest. Then he walked to the side of the bridge and he threw the child into the water.
Now, immediately, emergency responders were alerted and began searching frantically for the little girl. They found her body 90 minutes later, more than a mile away in the water. She was already dead. That was marked official at the hospital. The officer stayed behind at the scene trying to rescue Phoebe. That is a higher priority than chasing the speeding driver. While Johnchuk got back in his car and drove away, police eventually did catch up with him, and when he wouldn't get out of the car, they broke his window and then took him into custody. While he's facing murder charges, the Department of Children and Families also facing heavy criticism today. They handled multiple complaints in the past, all filed against Johnchuk over the last several years. Reports of abuse, child cruelty. Now critics say DCF could partly be to blame in Phoebe's death. Just a really terrible story there. But moving on now to the classroom. A new development in the battle between teachers' unions and Florida's private school voucher program. Now, these vouchers are a newer development in the private school arena, first starting in 2001 and changing several times until we are now. For years, parents that pay property taxes just like everyone else, but prefer not to place their children in public school, were forced to foot the bill of their tuition on their own. Now, this program allowed them to claim a portion of their tax money back and use it to pay for part of their child's private school tuition. But as Public School Teachers Union Vice President Joanne McCall says, they fought the plan from the very beginning.
We will never hold back, and we will never give up. We will once again take it as far as the Florida Supreme Court if necessary. We will not drop the lawsuit. We will not back down.
She's very resilient there, and she wants to fight this, but these vouchers create competition in the education arena and lead to smaller class sizes in the public school. There's been a lot of debate on both sides of this whole thing. Now, while competition means the student and the family gets a choice on where to put their kid in school, the teacher is forced to deal with the result. If they can't match up with the private school, then a lot of times the funding is cut. And of course, teachers' unions don't like that. Now, after a long-standing battle in court, the teachers' union realized they're starting to lose some ground, and they're dropping now one of their 2 lawsuits against the voucher program. That's the big development here. The teachers' union dropping one of those 2 lawsuits. Now, instead, all of their efforts will focus on their one remaining lawsuit to prevent the voucher program from expanding from what it already is. Now, right now, the program is providing partial funding for over 70,000 qualified students. They have to be below a certain income level to seek alternative schooling outside the public school. Even though there are nearly 3 million kids still in Florida's public schools, Teachers Union VP McCall says this still isn't fair, in her opinion.
They accomplish this by cutting funding for public schools and at the same time ratcheting up standards and accountability measures in the public school system.
Accountability in the public school systems might not be the worst thing for the students. A new report comes out, and Florida's public schools are dropping once again. Just 2 years ago, Florida's public schools were listed in the top 10 in the country. Now they're number 28 in U.S. rankings, below the national average. But when you break it down to dollars and cents, Florida's rankings look even worse. Compared to how much the state spends per student, the results are 7th worst in the entire country. You might remember before the election, Governor Scott vowed to increase education spending by over $1 billion. We'll see where this goes next.